it's not true. There's only very limited information that we have access to the aircraft while it's still in the air. But the problem is these days when the airplane is lost, the flight data recorder is lost along with it until the airplane is found. And even then, there's a remote chance. It's unlikely, but it's a remote chance that you'll never find it at all.
So that was Stephen, and a bit earlier on Michael speaking to us back in March. We also heard Harry, the pilot, who's not with us today. But Stephen, listening back to that from March, is there information now that changes your mind based on what you were saying then?
You have to ask me every day almost, because it does change. A few weeks ago, I was feeling rather hopeless about the possibility of finding it, but there's been some recent analysis in the last few weeks, and even this morning on our website, that has given me a bit more hope that we have some evidence that can point us in the right direction at least, even though it could still be months or years before we actually find the airplane.
So what is it specifically that gives you that hope?
Well, it's the Inmarsat data that we received, or we knew about just a couple weeks after the disappearance of MH370. There's been a couple of analyses, one by the so-called independent group of researchers and experts that have vectored a track and given us a pretty interesting possibility of where it could be. We ran a similar analysis. We quoted a 777 captain who has run a similar analysis that comes up with a very similar conclusion. So that gives us a little more hope that it might be in that direction. But really, I don't want to give false hope to these poor families. I feel so sorry for them and their frustration. I can't imagine that. But I do feel like we will find it eventually.
Okay. Yeah, your heart goes out to them when you hear that conversation. Michael, how about you? How do things differ, if at all, for you 9 months on?
Well, I do agree with Steve that there are a few new signs, but they're only signs. Basically what we know now, 9 months later, is the plane could have been on a different track. That's all we know. And so the fact is that the shocking element to this, having watched different plane crash scenarios over the years, is that I think Steve and I both probably would have expected there to be plenty of news by now, plenty of debris, plenty of answers, plenty of everything. But the fact is, we now just know we're going to search in a new area. And to me, that's pretty limiting when we have the world's best technology working on this.
And we heard Sharma talk about a big conspiracy. We heard the discussion about the vacuum of information leading to various theories. Can I just go through with both of you some of them that are circulating, which I'm sure you've seen? For example, the plausibility, in your view, of this plane being shot down. What do you think, Stephen?
There's no evidence in that direction at all. That's just conjecture and speculation. I don't have much credence.
And I suppose, go on. I was going to ask Michael, I'll ask you, for people that do latch onto these theories in the absence of information, is there any good reason why that would definitely not be a very plausible idea about this?
Well, if anything shot down the airplane, it would disintegrate into 1,000 pieces, and there's not a single piece that's been recovered. There's no evidence of that. That's probably one of the wildest theories, along with aliens.
Because it would be more likely to find debris if a plane had been hit in that way.
Exactly. Well, if you think about the unfortunately the second Malaysian crash in Ukraine, that plane was shot down, and we saw in the news how many bits and pieces were strewn over the countryside. So I give no credence to the current theory for MH370 for that.
And Stephen, what about the theories that circulate about hijacking, either from inside the plane itself or remotely somehow?
It's really impossible to know what happened on board the airplane, and pretty much all scenarios are possible, whether it's hijacking, crew, or sabotage. Based on the evidence we have no information at all about what happened on that airplane after 40 minutes into the flight.
Exactly. We're in a situation now where these theories are nothing but theories. There's no credence to any of them. and we don't know what's going on the airplane until we actually find it. So where we stand now, I think, is that we have people trying to push their own but we really have two tracks here. One, we need to find the airplane. There's still efforts to do that. There's new information earlier this month, so there's more hope. But then there's the other track of how can we prevent this in the future? And the industry is taking some steps, but there's a lot more to do.
And just briefly, we're coming up to the news. I'm just wondering, Michael, just a brief line from you on how you feel about the investigation itself. Do you think it's being conducted as well as it could be?
Let us begin.
Well, in the absence of information, there's a lot of critics out there, but an unprecedented scenario, you don't really have much to go on. The International Air Transport Association is trying to improve the tracking of aircraft in the future. That's ongoing. There needs to be a lot of countries stepping up and agreeing to take new measures to divulge information. That's another side of this. Not everybody's been as open as they could be, but...
Okay, I'm just going to jump in there because there's a little bit more to say actually on that, and it'd be interesting if you don't mind just to stick around for another 5 minutes or so to get some more thoughts on that. The BBC Newsday programme earlier on was speaking to the man who runs the Australian sea safety body, the body leading the search from H370. We'll put what he said to our guests and continue this conversation.
The BBC World Service.
The conversation explores the achievements of two women from different parts of the world, but with much in common.
I'm Kim Chakaneta, and in the next edition, two activists who fought against racial segregation. Erica was a leader in the Black Panther Party in America.
The iconic photographs of the Black Panther Party are embedded gaps, mostly men, looking very fierce. What drew me to the party was all powers, all the time.
Luiso Gaza took part in the struggle against apartheid from a young age.
I was singled out as a troublemaker, and I was detained at 14. I didn't understand it then that I was acting politically, but in fact, I was.
Inspiring personal stories about women, by women, for everyone. The Conversation, online every Monday at bbc.com.
The German journalist Jürgen Koppenhöfer will be our guest in the next part of World Have Your Say. He'll answer your questions live about what he found when he visited the so-called Islamic State. He's just come back from Raqqa in Syria and Mosul in Iraq, speaking to people and filming what he found. Whatever you'd like to ask about his 10-day trip, you can using facebook.com/World Have Your Say. You'll find our WhatsApp number at World Have Your Say.
In me, Wuju lives on.
BBC News. Independent cinemas in the United States say they'll start screening the controversial Sony comedy about the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un from Christmas violence. The film, called The Interview, was withdrawn after Sony was targeted in a cyber attack that Washington blamed on North Korea. Sony said it was proud to defend free speech. The military chiefs of Pakistan and Afghanistan have agreed to target Taliban bases on both sides of their border and to coordinate their military operations. The decision was made in Islamabad, as military commanders for Afghanistan, comes a week after Taliban militants slaughtered more than 140 children and their teachers in the Pakistani city of Peshawar. Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, has criticized the Ukrainian parliament for its decision to renounce the country's non-aligned status and work towards membership of the NATO alliance. He called the step counterproductive and said it would cause tensions. France is stepping up security in public areas after 3 attacks in 3 days. The Prime Minister said an additional 300 soldiers will be deployed for the Christmas period. One of the people injured in Monday's attack by a van driver who mowed down pedestrians in Nantes has died. The United States posted its strongest growth figure in more than a decade. The economy expanded at an annual rate of 5% from July to September, the second successive quarter of robust growth. In response, the Dow Jones traded above 18,000 points for the first time. A Canadian jury has convicted a man for murdering and dismembering his lover, whose body was posted to politicians and schools. Jürgen Magnotta had already admitted to the killing and pleaded insanity. The prosecuting lawyer persuaded jurors that Magnotta had no violent wrong.
Hi, this is Mo from BBC Bobs. You're listening to World War 6.
Hi there, welcome back to the programme. I can see your questions coming in on social media from Sierra Leone, Uganda, Kampala, Washington, amongst other places, for Jürgen Todenhöfer. He's the German journalist who has just been on a visit to Islamic State-controlled territory in both Syria and Iraq. We'll be speaking to him in a few minutes' time. Before we do, we're just going to finish off our conversation as we revisit the story of MH370, the missing Malaysian airliner. We heard a little bit in the first half, 10 minutes of conversation between two families who are missing loved ones who are on that plane. And we're just going to finish off our conversation now with some experts from the aviation industry who've been following the story all the way through. And they are Michael Miller, who is with UBM Groups, an aviation conferencing company, and also Stephen Trimble in Washington, America's managing editor of Flight Global. And just before the news, we were talking a little about the current investigation. And actually, Stephen, Danica, in that interview that we played just before, when the families talked to each other, was talking about the spectre of this happening again. And I'm just wondering if you have been thinking about how the aviation industry might stop this from happening again, or is it impossible to say without knowing exactly what's happening?
Well, I mean, we don't know what happened on board the airplane that caused it to go astray, but we do know that we lost it, and we do know why we lost it, and which data links were compromised, which transponders were switched off, and so there's a lot of effort and a lot of thinking going on right now at the very highest levels of the aviation industry to prevent that from happening again, by making us less reliant on these data links that right now are under manual control of the cockpit or of the pilot and co-pilot. And coming up with Airbus has come up with an idea, and they're installing this on the A350, their latest aircraft, of deployable flight recorders. So no matter what happens with the communications links, the flight data recorder is deployed from the aircraft before crash and alerts the first responders by satellite link.
It'll send out a signal, or it'll eject from the aircraft, unlike what the black box thing that airliners will normally carry and down a plane that crashes.
That's right. Basically, an ejectable flight data recorder or black box, and it would float and alert first responders by satellite where the airplane went down.
Michael, do you think we'll ever know all the answers to this conundrum, this story?
I think we have to, because it's the confidence of the traveling public that's at stake, and there are quite a few people working on this, as we've just been noted. If technology is part of the solution, how can we take some of the decision making out of the pilot's hands? Because we need to remember that one of the aspects of this whole situation with MH370 was that the transponder in the cockpit was shut off or failed, and why that happened is part of the mystery of this. Can we prevent the transponder from being shut off? Can we have new systems that automatically send signals? There's a lot of consternation over those issues, but it comes in the face of a remarkably safe aviation industry where we've exhausted a lot of other possibilities, and now we have to go with trying to improve technology to prevent this from happening again.
Okay, Michael and Stephen, thank you very much indeed for being with us on World Have Your Say, and we'll of course continue to follow the story and any more information that comes out of it with great interest. Now, as well as MH370, we've been talking a lot this year on World Have Your Say about the group that calls itself Islamic State, the group which is now in control of territory in both Iraq and in Syria. It's not easy to report firsthand on what's happening there because of the dangers involved, especially considering the hostage-taking and killings which made headlines around the world. Some of those killed have been reported. But one German journalist, an author, just come back from 10 days in Syria and in Mosul in Iraq negotiating access. His name is Jürgen Todenhöfer. He's live with us now from Munich to answer your questions. Jürgen, welcome to World Have Your Say.
Hi.
Thank you very much indeed for being with us, and by the volume of questions that have been coming in from our listeners, people seem very interested to talk to you. They're very interested in the journey that you made. So let me start by putting questions to you from Hassan in Sierra Leone, Ayeka in Uganda, several others asking similar questions about, indeed, in the first place, how you came into contact with IS and who issued you the visa to get to Mosul.
I'm writing a book about IS, and it started in January, and in spring I realized that you cannot write a book about an organization. So I contacted by jihadists, German jihadists who were on Facebook.
80.
And out of these 50 news, there were two which were interesting, and one from IS. The guy from IS said he's not allowed to speak with me, but there's one man authorized by the music department to speak with me, and from this time, 7 months ago, I discussed the situation in the country, their ideology with discussion,
Did you make your personal views clear to them at that point, or were you?
Yeah, they knew. The thing was that I have a big Facebook site in Germany, the biggest after that, and they knew that I had criticized IS several times, very, very strongly. And they knew that I had met President Assad, several times in the years before. So they knew that. And I told them, I said, you are not inviting, I wanted to go there, but you are allowing somebody who is criticizing you, who doesn't share your views, and who has met Assad. You cannot attack me because of these two things. And they said, no, that's okay.
Your team has destroyed.
They knew everything about me.
And how did you know that they were genuine?
Your turret has been destroyed.
Because German journalists tried to get in touch with one of these IS people too, and they were not allowed. They got 2 months of jail, and I was informed about all this. And after a certain time, when you speak with a person, I was in my younger days, I was a judge, and I had during 7 months discussions with I found out that the things he told me were true.
Okay. Well, thanks for answering that. And other people are asking about anything you needed to do to gain access to something, watching some Facebook page. Did you have to take royalties to Al-Baghdad?
Of course. And now also, I told them I will criticize you in Germany. They said, yes, you can criticize us. That's okay. If you don't invent stories, it's okay.
So you got...
I never swear anything to anybody.
Okay, so you got access, and then you came to do the trip.
I had a personal paper from the office of the so-called with my team. This was especially my son, 30 years old.
Yeah, your son was filming you throughout, right?
Yeah.
And you can actually see that piece of paper on Caroline Hawley's report there for BBC TV that she made with you. It's on our website, bbc.com/news. Zaid Al-Fares, we were in touch with earlier on, a Syrian photojournalist who's from Raqqa, and he asks this: did ISIS let you move around freely and without censorship when you came to go there?
In Raqqa, no. But I didn't ask Raqqa. I wanted to go to Mosul. So they said, you wanted Mosul, and so you cannot see Raqqa.
So they only let you see certain things. You have to abide by their rules.
No. I wanted to see Mosul. Right. We arrived in Raqqa, and I said, I have half a day. Why don't you allow me to go outside? They said, no, we don't have a program for you. So I said, So I consider myself as a prisoner now, as a prisoner of war, because you don't allow me to swing. So we had a also because they said they would censor all the photos of my son. At the end, they took off all our mobiles, our computers, and at the end of the trip, we had to show all the photos. And out of the 800 photos, we deleted 9 for security reasons. It could have been a problem for the families of certain foreign fighters if we had shown photos of them. This was but there was I want to see a Peshmerga fighter, or I want to go to jail, or I want to see people who have conquered Mosul. I want to speak with them, and almost always.
And how did that work? Did somebody go with you to accompany you to allow you to go to places to see things? You were always being taken to places by people that presumably wanted to show you a certain aspect of what you were hoping to see.
No. First of all, I have to say that I know Mosul. I've been in Mosul in 2002 with my son, by the way. So that was the reason why I wanted to go to Mosul. I wanted to see the difference. And we lived with these fighters, these candidates. We slept on the floor. They were always with us. We had always the same driver, which was from the Secret Service, and which seemed to be a very important man. I couldn't see him because he always wore a mask. And when we went out in the evening, so at the beginning there were always some people around us, but after half an hour we were free. You know, when you go out with somebody after the flexibility to do what you want to do. We saw foreign fighters. We saw, and sometimes I was happy that because my son was attacked by a guy who was angry that he was filming.
A fighter or somebody else?
He was filming people who were watching a propaganda video in the street, and suddenly somebody exploded and jumped on my son, and I was happy that I could reach one of the security guys.
Okay, well look, let's get through some more of listeners' questions. Loads of issues are coming up, and as we spend time on this edition of World Heavyweight Live with Jürgen Todenhofer, who's been to Islamic State-controlled areas in Syria and particularly in Iraq. Mosul was the place you saw most of. You've just been telling us. You can get in touch and post your questions as you listen. The hashtag is WHYS. Now, eBay Chijoki Nafada's posted this. I'm not sure where from, but eBay asks, what does the Islamic State look like in terms of leadership and laws?
That's a very good question. I'm going to try to write a book about that. I say something which may seem amazing. The Islamic State is functioning, working like a state, like a totalitarian state, like other totalitarian states in the region. It's not only a terroristic movement, it is a state. They have a policy. They have a order. I don't like. They
have social misfits that have rallied around a common What's good about the members, the foreign fighters, members in there?
What struck me was that I only leaders who have filled their lives in their countries. Those like a lot of extremely intelligent people. For example, the last guy I met in a recruitment center near the border to Turkey was somebody from, I will be Wake, from an island near the United States. He had just passed his second law exam, was accepted as a lawyer to Germany, and he preferred to fight for the Islamic State instead of being a successful lawyer. So I met extremely intelligent people. I met Americans from New Jersey, which is a rich part of New York. There was a young boy, he was the son of one of the richest bankers of London. So it's the images is not easy to design. You have people who have failed, who have been in jail even in their home countries, but you have also very successful people. And
what did they tell you about what had drawn them to be there rather than capitalise on their success back home?
There is this dream to make something like the first four caliphs, something horrible, to conquer the whole Middle East and make out of the Middle East an Islamic State, and at the end an Islamic State all over the world. The problem is that they are doing this with very brutal methods. They prepare and they plan and they speak about the religious plans, which means that only the religions of the Jewish, Christians and IS Muslims will survive. All the rest has to be killed. And I asked one of the media department, I said, but there are, for example, 150,000, 150 million. You will not kill 150 million. I said, of course not. And if they would be 500, we would kill 500 million. We have to make this cleansing to have a world where God is respected. And I said, I don't believe that God wants you to kill people. And that's what this was our key discussion, and this was the hardest impression, this religious cleansing in a dimension that mankind has never seen until now.
Okay.
At least these are their plans.
Okay, and lots of people obviously are reacting to your reporting. It's an unusual feat, I guess, to get in and out of that area at the moment, particularly for somebody who is a journalist from Europe. Charlie Winter works with the Quilliam Foundation. He's been tweeting about this. That's an anti-extremist think tank that we've had on this programme before, talking about what they do. And he tweets this: sad to say, but Jürgen Tollenhofer, the propaganda coup for IS, supporters are wildly pleased with much of what he's telling the media. So what's your response to that? People talking about the reporting you're doing as being propaganda for the Islamic State?
Yeah. This is the opinion of this gentleman. It's right. You know, I've met and I've informed the German government and American government. So they said I was instrumentalized by Assad, and I made propaganda for Assad. I never made propaganda for Assad. As a former judge, I know that you have to see all the time. And if a judge would say, I don't speak to this murderer, I will not listen to him, I will not speak to him, his judgments will always be wrong. You have to speak with everybody. And I try to find out what is the truth, and I find also out what is the right strategy. The actual strategy of the West is wrong, and I'm looking for a better strategy. It is wrong to bombard Syria and Iraq with our bombs. It didn't work in Iraq, it didn't work in Afghanistan. It was a terror-breeding program. And you talk about
George W. Bush's illegal Iraq war creating ISIS is what you said.
ISIS started in
what I'm just wondering,
yeah,
and what I'm just wondering then is this trip and the reporting you were doing a way of proving that opinion you were held, or was it something that you came to believe while you were there?
No, I didn't realize everything. I met in 2007, I spent a week with the Iraqi resistance, the moderate resistance who fought against the Americans. And at this time I met also a guy from Al-Qaeda. For me it was Al-Qaeda. Today I know it was a member of the Islamic State of Iraq, ISI. And everything started in Iraq. And in 2007 I met one of the so-called IS leaders that we have now. At this time he was an ISI guy. So my trip brought many things together. And one of the conclusions is that the only possibility to fight down, to defeat IS, is that the Arabs, the Sunni Arabs from Iraq, fight IS. But that's very complicated because they are discriminated in this. They have been kicked out, they have lost all their jobs, they have been tortured by the government Maliki.
And you're talking Johnny, about your view is that integrating them more into the state as it exists in Iraq would help bolster them. That's your view about how this situation might be
could
solved.
Stop IS.
Okay, I'm just really interested in getting some more questions and more views to you. There's Ahmed Al-Rakabi's in touch, actually, a journalist, founder of Radio Dilja in Iraq, now in London now, and on the line a question to you directly, Jürgen. Ahmed, welcome. What would you like to ask Jürgen Todenhofer that we've not already covered?
Well, first of all, I agree with Mr. Todenhofer that journalists speak to devils and angels. But I'm also curious, did he discover something he didn't know in advance? I mean, we all know about the brutality of ISIS we've seen, and they're obviously not embarrassed about showing their brutality on YouTube. They're not embarrassed about telling the world what they intend to do about the religious cleansing, all the things Mr. Todenhofer mentioned. What did you discover, by visiting something you didn't know before?
An enemy
I never believed that this religious cleansing would have the dimensions they told me, that they are ready to kill hundreds of millions. I think what you said, everything's correct, but nobody knows in the Western countries what is going on. And I think that the West is underestimating their strength. They are very strong, and every day hundreds of new fighters arrive. And to realize, I realized it there, because I was crossing from Raqqa to Mosul, then to Deir ez-Zor, and then back to Turkey. To realize that they are bigger than Great Britain. For me, maybe not for you, for me.
There's an interesting tweet here from Safa Zimbo who's been in touch, and I know, Jürgen, you've been talking a lot about, I guess, your pessimism in terms of how strong you feel IS is, but Safa Zimbo asks this: do you think IS would be effective against an organised professional army? For example, the Peshmerga seem to be beating them, and perhaps Safa Zimbo is referring to the upper hand that Peshmerga seem to be having in Sinjar.
I cannot judge, and I will not talk about things I cannot judge, but I remember the war in Vietnam. We heard always that there were victories of the Americans over the Viet Cong, and at the end they had to leave. These are guerrilla fighters, IS, and they don't care if they lose a village and then they win 3 other villages in this war, which is, as I said, on an area of UK. I was some months before in Erbil, in the Kurdish part of Iraq, and I went to the front where the fighting was. So in the newspapers there was, yes, I have beaten them, and they went from one village to another, and after a certain time they came back and they took it back. So I cannot judge it. I think I have to lose villages, and I hope that they will win a lot of outlets.
We've got another question from a listener asking whether you found any African fighters left. Lots of people who are listening to this program are listening right now in various countries.
Yeah, I met one guy, African
Caribbean, but somebody
it's not really African.
No.
And I met somebody from, I think he was from Ethiopia. He was from a part of the religious police. And I didn't meet many Africans.
Okay, you talked about the nationalities you met, and of course the German jihadis that you got in touch with in the first place. We're coming up to the end of our conversation, Mr. Todenhofer, but one more question from Kampala in Uganda. Bahati Alex Simus got in touch to say, what signs prompted you to escape? Did you feel towards the end in danger?
We were several times in danger. The first danger was, would they stick to their promises? The second danger was in Mosul, where a bomber came down and very close to us, and we didn't know what to do. And the third situation was when we crossed the border to Turkey, and when I had to run. And
you had to run back with your kit, yeah, and you described that in the writing, and you can see that article and that TV piece on bbc.com/news. Thank you so much, Jürgen Todenhofer. It's been an interesting 25 minutes speaking to you live on World Have Your Say. We appreciate your time. Thanks for all your questions. We'll speak again tomorrow.
Documentaries on the BBC World Service. Wherever in the world a story needs to be told, we'll be there.
The only schools the insurgents haven't attacked so far are madrasas.
Gay and lesbian people claim they are being pushed into changing their sex as if it were a cure.
Many watched in awe as a daughter gradually turned against her father.
Service.
Newsroom is coming up in just a moment, and then afterwards at 19:30 GMT, Gareth Mitchell shares a discussion about the future of video games. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, from strength to strength. Find out more in Click in half an hour.
This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
19 hours GMT. Welcome to the news. BBC World Service. Coming up on the programme, it's back on.
You want us to assassinate the leader of North Korea?
Yes.
That is the greatest day.
The interview gets a limited Christmas Day release in the US. We're getting the very latest from our arts correspondents. Afghanistan and Pakistan agree to coordinate military action against those responsible for the Peshawar school massacre. We'll be hearing from a Pakistani military expert. Also, a surprise result in elections in Kashmir as the Hindu Nationalist Party, the BJP, takes second place. And why, for some young girls, all they want for Christmas this year is a Queen of Africa doll.
The hairstyle of the doll looks like the one my mommy does for me, and the clothes is like the one I am wearing.
Mark Coles, join me.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. Sony Pictures a limited theatrical release in Interview, the comedy about the North Korean leader withdrawn after a big cyber attack. Obama has criticised the company for cancelling the film and said the US would retaliate.
Originally made the decision not to screen these showing cinemas. But now a handful of smaller independent they have been given permission by companies. The Texas-based Alamo Drafthouse chain told the BBC they would now be showing the film, which tells a fictional story of an assassination attempt on the leader of North Korea, Kim